This is C.L.S. on one, and today I have a 2001 Ford F-250, and my automatic door locks aren't working correctly. I can lock my door just by pulling this up and down manually, and by using the key on the outside of the door, but when I use the button, the automatic button here, or the key fob, it does not work. And I'm going to show you how to fix that today.
So we're going to start by removing this cover up here in the upper corner. This is the cover for the mirror bolts, and it'll just pop right out of there. Now we're going to remove this lens cover on the door, and underneath that cover we're going to find a bolt that's 7mm, and we're going to remove that. Now it's time to remove the window and door lock switch panel. That'll just pop straight up, and then we're going to remove all the wire harnesses. Should be 4 of them total. Now if you notice up here in the corner there's another 7mm bolt. We're going to remove that now also. Now it's time to remove the door panel. We're just going to lift straight up, and there's going to be one light that we're going to have to unplug on the back of the panel here. Real simple to unplug it there. Now we're going to remove this rubber guard that's in the corner here. A couple screws should take this out, and you should be able to turn it to the side. Now we're going to remove the matting on the inside of the door here and get it out of the way. You can just take it halfway off or all the way off. I'm just going to fold it in half here, then put a clip through the hole to hold it in place. Now we're going to access the door panel here and start taking everything apart. We're going to take out the bottom bolt for the window track, which is 10mm. Now we're going to remove the torque head bolts on the side of the door there that hold the door latch in place. They are T27. So there's going to be 3 of those, one on the bottom and 2 on the top. Now it's time to remove the manual locking rod. There's going to be a yellow clip at the bottom of it here. We're going to twist that down and then pull the bottom out. Then there's going to be one clip higher that we're going to have to remove also. I'll zoom out so you can see that. So on the top there's one more clip to pull out, and then this whole rod will be able to just pull out of there. Now we're going to be removing an 11mm nut that secures the outside latch. There's a look at it there. So we're going to remove that. There's one on the bottom and one on the top. This is the bottom one. Now it's time to remove the top one. Inside this rubber cover here, there's going to be access to the top one. Let's take a closer look at it so you can see it here better. So right inside there you can see it, and that's what we're going to remove next. Now we're at the outside of the door here, and you're going to notice the door handle is pretty loose now. There's going to be a couple more rods that we're going to have to disconnect though. So let's take a closer look here. So I'm going to start with the one off to the left here. So to get this one to come apart, we're going to have to pry the top and then push from the bottom at the same time. So you pry and spread that open, and then push the pin up from the bottom, and then that'll come out. Now if you notice there's a yellow clip here, we're going to follow that down to the bottom of that rod, and you'll see that there's a green clip, and that's where we disconnect this rod. So to disconnect that, there's going to be a tab that's in the front here. I'm trying to show you with the screwdriver. That needs to push open, and then we can take it apart. So right there we got it to pop open, and now that rod should pop out of there also. Now you should be able to completely remove that outside door handle. Now we're going to go to the inside of the door, and we're going to pull that whole assembly, the whole actuator and latch through the center of the door here. There's going to be a couple wires attached. We're going to have to disconnect those. So use a screwdriver to pry those apart. So there's 2 wire harness clips to disconnect, and then 1 wire harness bracket, and you can just pull that off with a pair of pliers. Now we need to remove the actuator from the door latch. So you can use a screwdriver here, and then you're going to pry up this part right here, and then the whole actuator will slide towards you. And I'll show you a closer look at the clip after we get it pulled out of here. So if you notice on the bottom of it there, there's a clip there, and that's what you push up to be able to slide that out of there. Right there. So from this point you have two options. Either you can go buy a new one on eBay, you can find them as cheap as $11, or you can repair the one you have. So to make this repair, we're going to have to open this up and modify it. To do this, we're going to have to start with drilling out the top of these plastic rivets. That way we can pop it apart easier without breaking it. So go ahead and drill all 6 of those spots. Once those are drilled out, now we have to drill out the metal rivets also. There's going to be 2 of those located on the top here. So these are a little bit trickier to drill. You're going to have to hold the front side of the rivet with some needle nose pliers, otherwise they're going to want to twist on you. Then hold it at an angle to where you can still drill the back side of it. So you want to get both of those drilled out. Now we're ready to take it apart. So you just use a flat blade screwdriver and it should just pop apart real easy. So the motor should stay attached to one side. That's because it's got some metal prongs that it pushes into the motor there. So there's a look at the 2 tabs that stick into the motor there. That's what powers the motor actually. And plugs in right there. So what we need to do is modify this. We're going to take off the back of the motor here. There's 2 tabs. We need to pry those up so we can take the back part of this off. So one on each side there needs to pull out. And then we can just pull this white piece right off. Now the piece that we need to modify is on that piece we just took off. And what it is a resistor that's designed to be a safety feature for these, and it has failed. So we're going to replace it with something else. So we got 2 options on how you can make this repair. Either you can use the existing resistor and wrap it with foil. So you want to get it wrapped as nice and tight as you can to keep it close to the same size as possible. Then what you simply do is just put that back in place where you got it. Or what I did is I used a piece of aluminum I had laying around and I cut it the same exact size as that resistor and then slid it back in the slot where it came from. This is a better fix. If you happen to have a chunk of metal it's the same thickness, this is a much better fix because you'll have a nice solid connection, nothing to worry about. Now it's time to put this back on. Make note of these 2 arms that are inside there. Those are going to have to go over the top of the spindle here on this motor. So you just got to be careful when you're sliding that back on that spindle goes in between those. You don't bend those and break them. So this only goes on one direction, so there's no worrying about putting it on wrong. And you want to make sure it seats all the way flush there and no gaps. Notice there's not any gaps now. Now it's time to bend those 2 tabs that we bent up earlier. It's time to bend those back down, and that'll secure the back of the motor. Now it's time to put the motor back in the casing. So we want to make sure that the 2 tabs are pointed up when we seat this motor. So we're going to go ahead and attach it to the side that the gears are on. And you can go ahead and spin the gears just a little bit just to make sure everything's lined up right. So notice if you spin that, everything spins, meaning all your gears are making contact. So now it's time to put that cover back on. You want to put the cover on nice and level and make sure that those 2 prongs that go into the motor seat in there just right. You don't want to bend those tabs or break them. So just take your time and make sure that the case closes all the way together there and that there's no more gap. Now, where we drilled out those plastic rivets, we're going to drill all the way through with a 1/8 bit. So just stay nice and centered where the plastic rivets were and go ahead and drill all the way through. And then you can open it up really fast and make sure there's no shavings in there, clean it out. Otherwise we might have some problems with the gears. And then go ahead and put it back together. Now we're going to use some 3/4 of an inch long panhead screws to secure the housing back together. So we're going to do that with all 6 plastic rivet holes. There's a look at it with all 6 screws in place. Also, if you want to secure the top 2 holes where those metal rivets were, it's not necessary, but you can just use a small bolt and nut to go through that hole to secure it. So here's a look at what I used to secure that top hole. So you want to do one for each hole there, there's 2 of them. So now it's time to test the actuator. Go ahead and plug in just the wire harnesses and test it with the unlock button to make sure that the motor is working. As long as it's working, go ahead and put it all back together.
Alright, the lock actuator is back in place and it's working good now. Thanks for watching, and if you want to hear more from me, please like and subscribe.